Good day, Dental Land. Ooh, yeah, we're all right. We're all right. Coming in here hot. This is just one of those crazy mornings. I'm juiced up, full of cough medicine. I've had this cough that I've had for the last, it's been a month. And of course, PDC rolls around. There's been no real downtime. I've got a real bad case of the man cold. How's everybody doing out there? Hopefully everybody's doing great. Just one quick note in regards to how I can keep the lights on here. DentistOnDemand.com. If your practice is not listed on DentistOnDemand.com, I recommend you go check that out. We've got great advertisement that's running currently, and our clients are seeing lots of patients subsequently. So check it out, DentistOnDemand.com. Also, Avo Systems by Smile Sonica. If you have not checked out the Avo system, it's a great little orthodontic device that runs alongside either wires and brackets or clear aligners, and we're looking at saving treatment time. So it biostimulates osteoclast and osteoblast and just helps your cases run that much smoother. Without further ado, I won't butcher it because I normally, Daniel, I normally butcher it. So yeah, I'm already rambling. How are you, sir? I saw you a week ago.
No, I want you to try. Just try it. Let's see where it lands.
No. There you go. See, there comes the cough. Don't make me laugh. You look at. I love your little setup there. You got you got some 3D graphics happening in the background there. You've got all sorts of devices in behind you, SprintRay. You're immersed in it. I know we were talking on the PDC floor about how you're using OpenClaw, and just fascinating, amazing things happening on sort of that, on the AI front. Just for the audience, dive into a little bit about what that's all about. You're getting, the random phone call even, you're saying.
OpenClaw is why. I mean, AI, everybody's starting to integrate AI in some form or another, but I think we're just scratching the surface there. And for those of you that don't know, OpenClaw is effectively an agent that you can run locally. On its own, it's not hyper intelligent. It's more of like a delegator, and then you assign it access to a large language model for its brain, and then you can provide it with tasks to do, and it acts as a bridge between these frontier language models and maybe your file system, maybe your Gmail, maybe your Google Calendar. You can integrate it with a whole bunch of different things. To some degree, we've been able to do this with automation workflows like N8N and things like that. But OpenClaw takes it to the next level, runs locally 24/7. It's very customizable. And I've given mine access to WhatsApp. It has its own phone number. It has its own email address. It will reach out periodically and contact me if it feels like there's an action item that it wants me to intervene with. I have it running around performing a bunch of tasks on my monitor right now. I can see it's sharpening up my website. So it's just, the technology is wild, and I think this is going to be a huge productivity hack for those who can implement it. The hard part is implementing it, because it's still not a very easy system to install and get up and running, but man, is it ever cool. It's exciting to see where this is going.
It really is. Obviously yourself, you're an early adopter on all of it. There is sort of that need to have sort of the foundational knowledge behind it. You know what I mean? It's not an easy kind of just set her up right now, but coming from guys like yourself, folks like yourself, just diving into it, it's pretty eye-opening, isn't it? What it means for all sorts of things, in terms of if your job entails some sort of digital on a computer work, it's seemingly going to affect all of us, isn't it?
100%, and in ways that you'd be surprised by too. So I had a buddy of mine. I was kind of explaining this whole thing to him, and he was like, "But I don't get it. What can you do with this that you couldn't do before? And I was explaining to him, I was like, I've got a few like situations with work where I'm like, I need to be able to like automate this, but in order to automate it, I'd have to have like a website and I'd have to have all these different things. And I was able to verbally explain using words what I needed to accomplish. And my open claw said, bet, hold on. And it ran off in the background and it designed a website, built a database, linked them together, created input fields, bridged and digested data from different sources like my Gmail, my calendar. And it created this entire interface that it's called Mission Control. And it's super useful for me. And I utilize it every day and I do a bunch of different things in it. But it did all this without me interjecting on a single line of code. I didn't have to know how to program. The barrier between having an idea and implementing that idea, there used to be quite a few barriers. I mean, there were a lot of hurdles and obstacles that you would have to overcome. There has never been less barriers between idea and final product. And like OpenClaw can perform all the tasks. I mean, if it realizes it needs somewhere to host this content, it fires up a web server. If it needs somewhere to host the database, it installs SQL and fires up a database server. Like, it just does it all on its own. It's fully autonomous. So yeah, I mean, the implications are wild for, I don't care what industry you're in. Like, people need to be paying attention to this.
Well, I mean, the ones that are paying attention are just going to be that much further ahead, right? That's kind of the name of the game. And at the end of the day, obviously, there is a great degree of sort of immersing yourself into everything that's available. And I will echo that, like the tools that I'm using sort of on the creative front side of things. Like we were talking about 11 Labs. Not everybody has 3 hours of their own voice recorded to train the model, but I have within 11 Labs, like I can essentially start doing podcasts, solo podcasts, and just scripting it all out and having 11 Labs use my voice, and it's shockingly good. Like it's got all my sort of enunciation, it's wild. It's so cool. And then when you're coupling all of these tools together, that's when things get really wild. I haven't had time to immerse myself. Daniel, I gotta buy you a beer or a drink, and we gotta dive into all these things. It's like, I'm sure there's things that I could be utilizing in my business now when it comes to sort of like on my marketing and sales fronts, like just having, essentially a mission control. That sounds awesome, and again, these tools are just driven from the people, right? I heard somebody, like, everybody always sends me these memes and things, and the latest that I saw was this. Apparently the smarter like AI models out there are for the people. Like, everybody's afraid of like this whole Skynet thing, but it's like these models are going against the billionaires. So that's that's kind of a cool thought. Hopefully it doesn't eliminate us. It makes our lives into the future that much better, right?
Yeah, I feel like you might have a more optimistic viewpoint than I do on this subject. Fair enough.
It's terrifying, actually. I don't want to. I'm tired of being scared with all this bullshit going on the planet, Daniel. I'm trying to, being hopeful and optimistic about the future here. I've got young children.
I'm with you. We'll just keep our heads down and keep moving forward.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of the best outlook. But here we are on an AI tangent. I'm sure we could continue on this front. Let's dive into SprintRay. Like, here you are. You're obviously a very technically astute individual, working with SprintRay, like 3D printing. This is like a really cool, and we talk about the bell curve of people diving into this technology. It seems to be, it's something that every practice is now considering. And SprintRay was one of the first companies to the table in the dental industry, wasn't it? I remember seeing Usain Bolt's, like you guys, like there's been some cool marketing behind it. How's that been? How's that journey been on for you with SprintRay?
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. I mean, I haven't been with SprintRay, full disclosure, all that long. But I've been working alongside SprintRay for a very long time. And SprintRay, I've always admired the company's vision, and their pace is really, I think, what sets them aside, and fitting name. And of course, using Usain Bolt as the ambassador there was very fitting as well. They have always been on the cutting edge of the 3D printing curve and technology, and so in dental specifically. And I always mention this. I do a lot of presentations, and I always bring this up because I think it's just such a fascinating point. SprintRay employs around 700 people globally, and 300 of those are engineers. And that's a combination of product engineers, software engineers, and chemical engineers. And that just speaks to the speed at which SprintRay can innovate and is constantly, pumping resources into research and development. And it's one of the reasons why we hold the market share in 3D printing in dental. And look, I've been a 3D printing advocate for a very long time. I've been 3D printing for going on 20 years, and I've got tons of personal 3D printers. And when the technology came to dental, I was very excited. I knew immediately that it was going to be disruptive, more so than most people thought. And I think now people are starting to get the picture of exactly how disruptive it's going to be. And we're just getting started, right? Like the material sciences are starting to catch up to where I believe in the next few years we're going to obsolete a lot of other technologies that we currently use in this sector. And so it's just exciting to see the roadmap. It's fun to be a part of the journey. SprintRay is they definitely do a really good job on marketing. It's one of the things I really enjoyed about SprintRay from afar. At least I've come from the dealer side. I always loved their marketing materials and all the content they put out and things like that. And you and I know the social part is, social media and the content. It's very important. It's often overlooked by a lot of these, by a lot of folks, and a lot of these even manufacturers and technology partners and stuff. So,
I think especially when things are starting up, there's a great deal of trust that needs to be put into the brand and the name. So becoming more familiar that. This is something that is here to stay. This is here, like you just talked about the R&D and things that go into the background of these companies. It's like a significant thing. So, it's a really interesting time with it too. Like I've seen several clinics, they've made the big purchase and they've bought into the dream, but a lot of these some of these machines are just kind of sitting on a counter, and they're I'll get to this when I have time to figure out how it fits in my workflow. In your opinion and what you've seen so far, what's that sort of transition like from purchase to utilizing it in a workflow? And I know there are some really great folks out there that have, that are technically astute and are the early adopters. Is there like an early season for 3D printing right now? I know, milling has been around for a long time. But, you're looking at things like 3D printed fully permanent crowns coming. You hear the echo out there, and I know there's some solutions. And, you dove into sort of the material side of things too is a big part of the question too. So what, in your opinion, like successful sort of somebody that's in the middle that, has some technology in their practice, maybe an intraoral scanner, what does it look like for a doctor to jump into this technology successfully?
I think you hit it right on the head there. The problem with most 3D printers, and look, 3D printers on the technology side of it it's a cat and mouse game between a lot of the leaders in the space. SprintRay still has the highest resolution printers, and we still print the fastest, but the gap is pretty narrow between some of our competitors. And so that's not what sets SprintRay aside. I mean, yes, we're a little better, a little faster, et cetera. It's the workflows. So many printers get sold into the dental industry and then just sit on a desk because that's all they are. It's a 3D printer. And then it's up to the doctor to figure out, how am I going to integrate this into my workflow? Where am I going to do my designs? Am I going to do them myself? Am I going to farm this out to design services? Am I going to hire somebody to deal with this? Am I going to work with my lab? And once I do that, are these designs going to be compatible with my printer? Am I going to have to be making a lot of adjustments? What does this workflow look like? There's so many questions, and it's quite intimidating, I think, getting into this space, that typically that's what happens, right? 3D printer gets bought, put into the office, and then it just sits on the desk and kind of collects dust. And that's really what sets SprintRay apart from all the competitors. It's one of the reasons why I joined SprintRay, because their philosophy is all about the ecosystem. It's not just let's get a printer into that office. We control the workflow from end to end. So if you're brand new to 3D printing and you want to incorporate this into your practice's workflow, when you buy a SprintRay printer, alongside that, you get access to our Rayware Cloud ecosystem, which includes design services. Some of these design services are AI driven and have instant turnaround. Some of them are signature designs, which means that a technician sits at a computer and actually does the design and returns the final printable file to you. And then you can also rush you can rush some of these designs so that you can get it back really quickly. And all of this is done within the same interface that you are then just hitting print through. So we control the ecosystem from the beginning to the final print, and not just control the ecosystem, but because we are designing our own print jobs and we factor in exactly which resins that you're using, and they're our resins, we understand the material properties of those resins. We know which resins may be prone to a little bit of shrinkage. We know which resins, require different curing times. All of that stuff gets factored into the design. And what it results in is just less tinkering on the back end. If you're looking for a reliable, reproducible technology, you want to be able to print without being one of those early adopter tinkerer people, then there's really only one brand in dental that offers that, and it's SprintRay. And we are a premium product, and I understand that, and that's why, right? The amount of resources that we put into creating a full ecosystem rather than just selling you some hardware is leaps and bounds ahead of what our competitors are doing. And so I think it really sets SprintRay apart, and we're setting the tone for the industry. We're setting the bar pretty high.
Mm-hmm. Let's dive into sort of obviously we have to capture the 3D the STLs of the if whether that's an intraoral scan. How important is it to also have a conversation about things like CBCT, especially if we're going to be 3D printing drill guides and things like this, how open source is the SprintRay ecosystem in terms of talking to all these other devices or other softwares? Is it pretty integratable?
Absolutely, yeah. So, and great question. The part of the workflow that SprintRay wants to control is any part that's going to have major impact on repeatability and the overall print quality. So that part of it is a little bit more tightly controlled, but who we integrate with is pretty wide open. So as long as you have a scanner and you can export your STLs, you can bring that into Rayware Cloud and work with our design services and get from A to Z. And CBCT is very important. It's definitely part of the process. If you're doing any surgical guides, you're effectively going to select the surgical guide design service workflow, and you will upload your upper and lower scans. It'll ask you for a CBCT, maybe some other accompanying information if you have it, but those are kind of the core required components. And then our design team will work with that CBCT and those scans to design your surgical guide and send you back an STL. And so the workflow from an office's perspective, the difference between producing a night guard and producing a surgical guide is almost zero. Your assistants and CDAs, once they understand the workflow of print, wash, cure, they're just repeating that, regardless whether it's a surgical guide, a retainer, a night guard, a model. Yeah, there are some tweaks on the back end of the post processing, but most of it is very much the same. But to your point, it is very important. I make a point of bringing this up to offices. So I have a background in a lot of digital technologies. When I was on the dealer side, I was a digital specialist, and I sold everything from intraoral scanners to CBCT machines, et cetera. And on the intraoral scanner side of things, an important point I like to make is, and this applies to whatever 3D printer you're using, garbage in, garbage out. If your scan is poor, you've got a limitation there with the data that you're working with when you're producing and designing different appliances for the back end. So a lot of folks think the longer they spend in the mouth with that intraoral scanner, the better their data is going to be. And I will tell you, it's the exact opposite. So if nobody's told you this yet, you may want to revisit your workflows. Less is more with intraoral scanning. So the more time you spend over a particular surface, you are just dumping data on top of data on top of data and leaving it to the software to figure out which is useful data, which isn't. And oftentimes this is what creates discrepancies in some of the accuracy of a full arch scan. So what you want to be doing is one clean pass on the occlusal surface, and of course every intraoral scanner has its own kind of recommended workflow. So I'm going to give you a general one that works for most. It's a clean pass on the occlusal, rotate to the buccal or lingual, and then a clean pass, rotate to the other side, clean pass, and then go in and fill the gaps. But I think what a lot of offices do is they spend so much time in a particular quadrant, just like working in all the gaps before they've even created that full arch foundation. And then it really degrades accuracy. And a lot of times I sit down with an office and they're like, well, I'm printing night guards and they're just not fitting very well. And I'm like, yeah, this is weird because the workflow works. There's a ton of offices that are seeing a lot of success. Why isn't it working here? And then I sit there and I watch their scanning workflow and I'm like, let's try something different. And then all of a sudden accuracy improves and the final appliance fits better. So, same applies for CBCT. So there are machines out there that are better than others, and the quality of your data is very important going into your designs. So just worth noting.
Yeah, I've had lots of conversations. I've had like 2 or 3 people on the pod. There is actually a proper scan pattern for each individual scanner. So, I encourage everybody that's listening to understand that. It's just like an analog impression. There's a way to do it proper. It's, I think, if you don't already know that the scanner isn't just going to solve that for you. There's a technique in all of these pieces. It's a tool at the end of the day to capture the data properly. And man, oh man, we talk about like things like this new Lumina scanner that's got like 6 cameras in the head of it, and the speed and the accuracy is obviously there's the technology is now aiding in the scanning, but you've seen like the overstitching of certain files, and I think the longer you have this sort of technology in your practice, obviously the conversation that happens in between laboratory and and practice. I've been there when that conversation happens where lab is calling up the practice and saying, hey, can we get a rescan of this? There must have been liquid or something. We can't see the margins properly. So really understanding and like how your device works properly is mission critical.
Totally. You know? And the Lumina, it's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because the Lumina is an interesting case. A lot of iTero users got so used to the 5D and the specific, workflow and scan workflow for the 5D, and it's a bit of a change switching to the Lumina. The 5D was a contact scanner, so you'd have to be like touching the surface of the occlusal surface as you're scanning. Mm-hmm. The Lumina is not that. You want to be elevated a little bit because it's got a deeper scan depth. But the Lumina has 6 cameras, and it's pumping all of this data while you're scanning. And as a result, the software has a difficult time keeping up with that data flow and producing a workable preview on the screen for you to look at. So what a lot of offices end up doing is they begin to scan and they're looking at their monitor and they're looking at the preview and they're like, I don't see anything here yet. So they start to circle back over the area that they just scanned, and they kind of do it a few times before some data eventually shows up, and then they move on. And what you've effectively just done is degraded your scan quality because you've pumped way too much data on that one spot. You want to complete a pass, right? And the Lumina is one of those scanners where as you're scanning, so you'll start in one side of the arch, and as you're scanning, you'll notice that the area you just passed over, it still hasn't produced a preview for, but then a second or two later, the data starts to populate on the preview and you can see it. And if people were just a little more patient, they would probably reduce the amount of data they dumped on top of that scan and end up with a much better. I've got a lot of folks who actually have come to me and said, I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but I like my 5D better. And my answer has always been, your Lumina is definitely better. It's a phenomenal scanner. You're going to have to work on your scan workflow a little bit and adapt to this new technology. And when they do, they have great success with it. So I would recommend you just reach out to your line rep, and they're usually more than happy to come in and show you what they know. And they're all very smart. Yeah,
no, Align has got great support. I know a lot of those folks. They've been great over the years. But like you said a magical word there too, is patience. I think when you're diving into all this stuff. There's that funny the funny reel, I've seen it a few times, where like it'll be a dentist and he's like cocking a fist ready to punch like one of these pieces of technology because he's frustrated, and then they pop up the like the dollar value of whatever the device is, right? It's like CBCT, $200,000. Oh, I guess I won't,
hold off for a minute.
Yeah, so like give yourself the time to really immerse yourself into these, like part of your purchase. And, this is obviously speaks to SprintRay and all the 3D printing devices, is like part of the factor in you making this purchase is really diving into, make sure you're don't stop at not understanding this stuff. Like really spend the time, especially in the beginning, to and have the patience to really get on top of sort of this whole knowledge base. And I think that's maybe why some of these devices are purchased and sitting on a counter, right? Like they
there's
understand
absolutely
that.
A learning curve.
Yeah, there's a learning curve to it. How have you seen these things like coming in, and then you get that phone call after the purchase has been made, and like, wow, Daniel, this is amazing. Like, I can't imagine my life without this machine now. That must be fun.
It is. And 3D printing is one of those categories where you get that a lot, actually. It wasn't always the case. I remember having a few challenging installations early on where things didn't go as planned, and there was a little bit of hand holding that was required to get over that learning curve, and of course in some cases there were some hardware situations that arose, maybe some software stuff. In the earlier days, there was things were being developed so fast, and I think as much as you tried to make everything perfect, it's not always perfect. But it's funny because those doctors, and I still talk to them to this day. There's a couple of them. I was in one office, and I remember him telling me, get this thing out of here. Like I don't want it. And
Yeah.
and that doctor, I'm not gonna name names. He knows who he is if he's watching this. He's become an advocate, and he absolutely loves the technology, and he's always eager to tell me when he's tried something new and what's working. And so it this during the early adopter phase. So if you were to rewind a few years, 4 years ago, there was a lot of that. I mean, everything's so ironed out now that it's fantastic. Most of the time, we put this equipment into offices, and they're so eager to tell us how much they love it and what they're doing with it, and how they've just added a new workflow. And it's really nice being a part of that. I actually quite enjoy getting a lot of that positive feedback. It's a lot better than people complaining that this is broken and that's broken. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. I that's one of my favorite parts of this job, actually.
What are people 3D printing? You know, I hear guards a lot. I hear the conversation behind inlays and onlays, which that to me is, I think, like that's what I would look into. That portion, and then obviously drill guides.
Yeah.
And sort of on that list of that shopping list of things, what are people diving into first? Like what's the first thing?
I think the big one is you nailed it, is night guards. Night guards is the easy way to get your foot in the door with 3D printing, because it's easy to do. The workflow is simple. The materials are very resilient. It's kind of hard to screw the process up, to be honest with you. And on top of it, there's a fantastic return on investment. You know, the material costs to produce a night guard are really low. If you're printing night guards and you're doing, 10 to 15 night guards a month, you should be able to pay that printer off within 8 months, under a year for sure. So that's the easy foot in the door. A lot of people are still doing models. Like if you're not fully digital and you still have some analog processes, you might incorporate a printer and use it to print models. But I mean, we're moving into some pretty exciting applications. The dual kit is allowing denturists now to print base and teeth simultaneously. So dentures has become a really popular use case. We've just introduced Apex Flex, which is like a flexible partial denture. That's pretty exciting. That's produce something like, I don't know if my camera's going to focus in or not. There you go. Good. Partial. Yep. Yeah. Sure, flexible partial.
I'll put you full screen again. Put her back up.
Oh, sure.
Oh, no, now you've broken it. Yeah, don't show it now.
Yeah. So flexible partials. This is like your Valplast, and it's cool. It's a very flexible material.
How many folks are actually doing that with success? The whole, obviously digital dentures has been like a an ongoing conversation. Is it viable? Like, is there some practices that are really kicking some ass and like dentures is a really involved process with multiple visits, especially, you're talking about scanning soft tissue. It's different than the rest. Are you seeing it done successfully?
Yeah, and that's actually what makes it so viable. Is you nailed it. It's like there's a lot of visits involved from getting to point A to point Z of a denture, and what 3D printing allows you to do is cut that visitation time in half effectively. The materials are getting better. I mean, is it as good as existing dentures now? I would argue no, but the beautiful thing about the material science side of it is, I mean, we have a biomaterials lab. We're constantly innovating biomaterials. We're releasing materials so fast that I'm having trouble keeping up with it. And I think if you're a denturist out there and you're considering this, even if you're not convinced that the materials are there yet, it's probably a good time to jump on board, because this train isn't going to slow down. We're not going to go backwards. You're going to be able to do your designs faster. You're going to be able to print them, create provisionals now, but much more permanent, stronger materials are right around the corner. And our dentures right now don't last as long as conventional dentures. But they're not that far off. I mean, we're 30-40% behind them in terms of longevity. But I mean, for how much you can produce them and how quick you can produce them, there's a trade-off there too. I think the the big takeaway for a lot of these digital workflows is there are multiple areas of advantage, right? So, cost is a big one, speed is a big one, general ease of the entire process is a big one. And so the denturists, I think denturists are going to come around. They've already been coming around to the technology. We've got a lot of denturists out there that are utilizing this workflow, and we work with the Mod Institute down in the U.S. Dr. Wally Renee. The guy's a wizard. He will 3D print a denture, and then he'll characterize and glaze it, and sometimes candy coat it. And he has all these different techniques that he utilizes, and in like 5 minutes, he can produce probably the nicest denture I've ever seen. It looks like it looks like they just took a snapshot inside someone's mouth. So, it's, I don't want to say it's new. The workflow is not new, but it's evolving super quick. And I know there's some pushback on, well, are the materials there yet? And how long does this last, and et cetera. And if you're one of those people that's concerned about that, by the time you have a chance to get the unit in your office, play around with the technology, the materials there's going to be stronger materials available, and that the technology curve on this is moving extremely fast. So it's
insane. Yeah. Like when you consider, it seems to be just like time is flying by, obviously, but it's been fun to watch, and there's been some companies that have come and gone in the process. One interesting thing to me on the denture conversation was like, the 3D scan is like a static, like there's no movement. Just always like there's these problems to solve, right? And eventually, whether it's a materials equation or a software equation, eventually it's equation. And like the one thing that the one thing that's going to turn this industry upside down is when we have that viable single unit posterior permanent crown solution. It's what that means for the whole conversation behind milling and everything. Then you're looking at the cost of entry to get a 3D printer to do that is I think everybody will then have a 3D printer to print crowns. Like that's, it's obviously the conversation behind the material and whether, it's got that long-term, like if it's a layering conversation, whether that crown will withstand the test of time. But you're seeing permanent inlays and onlays happening right now, right? Like that's a thing. Like it's awesome, and it's maybe a more predictable treatment than the classic filling, right?
Oh, absolutely, and it's been happening for quite a while. I mean, Health Canada put the seal of approval on our ceramic crown resin for the Pro 2 about a little over a year ago. So you've been able to produce final restorations with your 3D printer for a little while. But I mean, the exciting thing was the introduction of the Midas. And the Midas is a single unit restorative 3D printer that actually uses a completely unique mechanism to 3D print. We call it digital press stereolithography. And I've been saying for at least 4 or 5 years, I've been saying that this technology will overtake milling. And it was like
subtractive versus additive versus subtractive manufacturing is always like it's always the path of least resistance, and part of that is like the cost of entry, right?
It's everything too. It goes even beyond that. Like, you're right. Additive versus subtractive. Additive is superior. Subtractive is just it's messy. You're wasting a lot of product. But beyond that, I mean, if I come from the technical side, so if you ever open the side panels on your mill and look inside to see what makes this thing tick, there's 200 moving parts. It's one of the most complicated devices. There's so many failure points. And you open up a 3D printer, and this thing has one moving part, just a worm gear that drives the build platform up and down. That's it. That's the only moving part. The technology is simpler, it's easier, it's faster, it's cheaper. And once the materials, and they will, once the materials exceed the material strengths of milling, then it's a game changer. I said they will. We will never be able to 3D print materials that are as strong as like a pure zirconia, 1300 megapascals. It'll never get there. Um, but it, but I think we'll get
How do
close.
you know, Daniel? How do you know?
Yeah.
Maybe you'd find something that's even more superior.
And you know what? And there's an argument to be made about whether or not that's even a good thing to have materials that strong. I mean, there are use cases, absolutely, right? But
Yeah.
if you've got a premolar and you're putting a crown on it, and it's like a really strong material, and there's some occlusal contact there, you're just destroying the opposing tooth, the
Yeah,
antagonist.
the
know,
adjacent tooth. Like,
yeah. So
gold is like still in the conversation because of just that, right? It's
soft, yeah.
Yeah, it's the
It's
material
pliable.
that closely matches the our enamel.
Yeah, and that's where we're at right now with our ceramic crown resins. They're a close match to natural tooth structure in terms of their flexural strength and impact resistance and all of that stuff. They're a little bit more pliable of a material. So rather than being as rigid as a ceramic, where they take a lot of pressure, but then they reach their breaking point and it's catastrophic failure, it cracks. Resins are a little bit more flexible. They can take pressure and kind of spring back a little bit to a certain degree. So I think they're a superior material, and we're going to keep making them stronger to appease the industry's need for stronger materials, because everybody wants stronger materials. Nobody wants to. There's no doctor out there that wants to put a crown in if he thinks there's a possibility of it failing. And then when you're talking about veneers and use cases where you need very thin wall tolerances, you obviously want strong materials there as well. So, but yeah, for years I've been saying this technology is gonna it's competing with milling now, but it will surpass milling for most use cases.
I agree from everything that I understand with technology. That's obviously you'll have the folks that really support milling and have been. It's over the last 30 years. It's been this workhorse in the practice. But it's an inevitable and eventual thing where it's just the path of least resistance. You talked about like all the moving parts in the mill. I've been in several laboratories where they've got this 5-axis mill all opened up and like they're pulling their hair out because they've got crowns that they need to get pushed out that day, and it's a nightmare, right? So, yeah.
Well, and I've been that guy in the office with the cover off the mill. Just pulling my hair out, trying to figure out what part needs to be replaced, and yeah, it's an absolute nightmare. And I think the real nail in the coffin is the Midas, this unit behind me on the left here. It's a tiny unit. It's not super expensive. That's this guy right here. All it requires is a curing unit. So these two devices side by side is all you really need. And you can produce single unit restorations. So crowns, inlays, onlays, and veneers. There is no resin tank per se. There's no build platform per se. Everything is kind of contained within these little capsules. So if I peel off the little red tape, the bottom of this capsule, this little glass area at the bottom, this is your tank. And this plunger on the on my right side over here, this is your build platform. I'm going to push it all the way down, and now the build platform is touching the bottom of the tank. See that black area? That's where we 3D print. And what happens here is the Midas plunges, it forces the plunger down, and it presses the resin from one plunger into the other, one layer at a time. So it's pressing resin into the cavity to be cured, and then it's pressing the next layer in to be cured, et cetera, et cetera. And really, the magic of this is that, as it turns out, on a traditional 3D printer, once you get above about 50% nanoceramic inside of a resin, the resin gets far too thick to be printed using that technology, because 3D printing relies on gravity. So the build platform comes down into the tank, it cures a layer, it comes back up, and it waits. And what it's waiting for is that resin that we've displaced to kind of flow back into the center of the tank, because we need resin in the center of the tank so that we can come down and cure the next layer. Most of 3D printing is actually spent waiting for this process between layers for the resin to flow back in. After about 50% nanoceramics, this process just doesn't happen. The materials are just too thick, and you'll displace them and it'll just stay on the outsides. And maybe eventually it'll come back down, but it's no longer viable for 3D printing. And this is a fundamental 3D printing problem, not a SprintRay problem. It's when you get to thick materials, the traditional way of 3D printing no longer works. Hence why the Midas was invented. So with these lovely little capsules, we can now work with resins that have an extremely high viscosity. This solves two problems. One, we can now work with materials, and we're constantly innovating these materials that are 60% nanoceramic, like our Crown HT is. This is actually, we'll have Health Canada stamp of approval on this should be by May, June. We're hoping to have it for the ODA. This is a 60% nanoceramic approved for final restorations, and it's a high translucency material. So it's great for veneers and inlays, onlays, crowns, etc. At Chicago Midwinter, we announced the 70% Crown Restore. I know that our engineers are working on even stronger materials than that. I won't divulge too much there, but we're going to keep pushing the boundaries of the material science, and this is the linchpin. This is what was missing from the 3D printing ecosystems, was the ability to work with these types of materials and do it efficiently. The other problem it solves is now we're no longer waiting between each layer for resin to flow back in. Instead, we're forcing that resin into that tiny cavity where it can be cured. This allows us to print much faster. So, I mean, you can do a crown chair side in 8 minutes. You can cure it in another 4 minutes. And if you factor in an additional, 6, 7, 8 minutes for post-processing, if we're being generous, we're talking about a full workflow of under 20 minutes. I think this is the most powerful for what you touched on earlier, which was inlays and onlays, because right now the direct composite workflow is not a fun one. There's no dentist out there that loves to do composites. They don't like, you got to prep and then you have to apply the composite in layers as you're curing it. And what does that do for strength? And then, you're forming it after, and they spend a lot of time in a chair just to do, a composite filling. We can now replace that with a prep and place workflow where you prep the site and then the doctor can leave the operatory and the assistant can come in and just scan it, run through the design workflow, hit print, do some post-processing, and the doctor just comes back in and bonds it into place. And now you've just done an indirect inlay or onlay, and our software can design that inlay or onlay to match the neighboring topology of neighboring teeth. You can tweak and play with it in the design suite software as well, which is another really interesting advancement. We'll touch on that in a moment, but it just gives you so much flexibility, and it's a far superior workflow. It's easier, and the final product is superior as well. And so all that considered, I think that's going to be the first thing that dentists really start to realize, is that we should be replacing that workflow with this one because it's just easier and better. And eventually when the insurance companies catch up, the billing will make a lot more sense too, as they have done in the States. Canada's a little bit behind. Yeah. We
are a little bit behind, aren't we? Thanks for taking over there. I just had an absolute coughing fit, so I appreciate it. I'm fighting through here.
It was because you went to ground zero there.
I know. We can't go there. Oh my God. Yeah, that's I brought this into ground zero there. So
don't say that. That's
I shouldn't say that. No. I've had this cough for the last, I've heard other people as well. It's just this lingering, annoying little tickle. But yeah, no, it's a really exciting time. And the whole conversation in between, you see all these design companies popping up now where they're kind of sitting in between where the laboratory used to sit. You talk about, if we're talking about single unit and night guards, that's predominantly the products that these laboratories, the vast majority of the services that they provide, the conversation in between this chairside manufacturing versus, the folks inside the lab that have been doing it for the years. It's this whole it's evolving the whole industry now. It's really interesting time to be alive, isn't it, Daniel? Like with this AI and what it all means. I think we're only beginning to grasp sort of and you see the creative ones, the early adopters that get this technology into their practice, and they're kind of on the cutting edge and figuring out things that might not have been even thought about by SprintRay, right? Like it's really cool to see these key opinion leader types just kind of take this technology and run with it too. It's a really exciting time to be in the industry too, or to be alive, I would say.
Yeah. I said that in our group chat the other day. What a time to be alive.
It really is.
You're 100%. You're 100% right. And the early adopters they're not only running with the technology, but they're excited about the prospects of what can be done and what this means for their productivity and for their workflow. And it's only a matter of time before there is a 3D printer in every practice. And you're right. Yeah. The conversation around how this impacts labs is a bit of a dicey one. I think SprintRay early on positioned themselves in opposition to the labs. And I think that everybody recognized that maybe wasn't the wisest approach. They've since turned a corner on that. I mean, we just announced Lab Connect. It's a feature in Rayware Cloud that allows our labs access to the SprintRay footprint in 3D printing digital dentistry. And so similar to what 3Shape Unite does, where they onboard labs into their software, and then you can connect with your lab and you can share,
collaborate. Yeah,
exactly. And so that's an exciting new
are you seeing hardware sold? Are you guys selling 3D printers to laboratory as well? Do you have a specific laboratory 3D printer?
No, the Pro 2 is the laboratory printer. This printer is a workhorse. It's phenomenal. This is the first generation of printer where we took some of the more important components out of the internal mechanism and placed them on the outside as a hot swappable unit. I can actually show you that real quick because it's something worth mentioning, and this is one of the reasons why it's a popular product here.
I'll put on some,
It takes 2 seconds, actually. So there's these red clips here at the side of the unit, and you unclip them, and then the entire optical panel. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but
I can hear you. I got some good music for you too.
Lovely, I love that. So the entire optical panel is a hot swappable unit, and I love that music, by the way. Sorry. I just need little Alex Trebek in the background.
Rest his soul.
Yeah. So the optical panel being hot swappable is interesting because a huge concern with a lot of people is like, am I going to buy this? The technology curve moves fast. Am I going to buy this and then it's going to be obsolete in a short period of time? And that was SprintRay's solution to that problem. The resolution that your printer is capable of is the direct result of this optical panel and its ability to create a digital screen to allow certain light through and to block certain light. And so as we develop the ability to print at higher resolutions, that'll be the optical panel that we're effectively improving upon. And you'll be able to purchase an optical panel that's capable of a better resolution and simply just drop it into your printer. Just as simply as I had taken it out there, it's just the exact reverse. So you just plop it in, seal the sides, and that's it. So that hot swappable component makes this printer very future-proof. And on top of that, it's, UV light is very destructive. So components like that over time will begin to degrade. And this allows us to keep that printer online with just a minor upgrade versus, a shelf life on a printer of 5 years or 3 years or whatever the case is. So labs love that. You obviously, when you spend money on technology like this, you want to make sure that you're going to get use of it and it's going to carry over for a long time. And, we've produced a product here that is not only high resolution right now, but will only get better over time. And you won't have to, continue purchasing the latest, greatest iPhone, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you will anyways, right? But I mean, we're talking about 3D printing becoming standard of practice. So it's just a necessary evil, just like you're replacing your high speed drills and everything. It's just another thing to worry about in the practice, right?
Right.
And then the materials conversation. So it seems to be that's the name of the game, where the materials are really just produced by the 3D printing company. It's just the chemistry that's been involved in sort of the best case scenario and outcome. That's a huge part of the development as well.
And I think we've done a good job of the material sciences side of it, and we're going to continue to push the envelope on that. But we also recognize that there are several, resin producers out there that are making great products, and so SprintRay's done a pretty good job of taking a lot of those key players and validating their resins for our workflow. So the Pro 2 is capable of printing more than just SprintRay's resin lineup. But we always recommend that you make sure whatever resin you're printing has been validated on the printer.
I would not mess around.
100%. There's so many little variables in there that we control for, and the profile for every resin is automatically updated through the internet on your printers, and that profile is extremely important if you want predictability and reliability. So
awesome. Daniel, this is great, man. Like I think this could be like an ongoing series. There's just so much, I'll have you on here in a month and a half and it's completely changed and brand new. It's just like, you're in with a fun company. It's cutting edge 3D printing everybody's talking about that and AI right now. And man, you're like the perfect fit for this role. I can tell that you do. I can see your passion behind it, and you're having a lot of fun. And thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that is noteworthy or top of mind that coming into this that you wanted to mention?
Honestly, you're right. This topic is so vast, and there's so much to talk about, and things are changing so fast that, we could spend hours here and I wouldn't get through all of it. I'm summarizing as much as I can just to get all that information out there. But it's definitely a lot for another conversation. And you and I should for sure grab a beer and dig into the AI stuff, because
I like beer. Yeah, no, we talked about getting set up on OpenClaw and what that would mean. And let's do that. Let's keep in touch. And if there's anybody listening in right now, what's the best method of getting hold of you? And I will make sure that I put it into the show notes as well.
Yeah, you can just put my email address and you can put it right on the screen right here for me. And then
I could
digitally impression that.
Yeah. Give me a sec, and I can make that happen.
No, I don't want to put you on the spot. You can do it after the fact, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I will. Yeah.
No, they could just email me, call me. I'm available. I cover BC and Alberta, but I'm happy to help anybody reaching out just for general information and things like that. And I love doing demos and presentations and all that fun stuff. So just
cool.
Get a hold of me.
You got it, man. Thank you so much for your time. What's the plans for the weekend?
Spend some time with my kids, maybe do some golfing,
nice.
Some play places, that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Low key weekend. How about you?
I think just after I feel like I'm in this glaze right now. Like PDC was just bananas, and it's always an exciting time, and busy in this world is a definite good thing. So just holding on for dear life, putting in some long hours, but
it takes a while to recover from an event like that, doesn't it?
It's like a beating. It really is. It's like you feel great after it, like just reconnecting Absolutely. With everybody, and it's always a lot of fun to see what everybody's up to, and I really enjoy it. But this weekend I think we're going to be a little bit low key in between sports finishing and starting. So maybe get some fun time in with the kids, and same. Not golf though.
No. Oh, you got to get your kids into golf.
They actually We did. We had them in some lessons a couple years ago, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I want to get my kids in because I wish I had that, so I'm not so terrible now. I'm doing them a big solid.
Everybody's terrible at golf.
It's the whole point of you said the magical word, and that is beer. So you're going on a nice walk. Hopefully you've got some good company and maybe possibly a couple cold ones. So that's the name. We'll go beer golfing in the near future. Hopefully.
Sounds like a plan. That's
beautiful,
perfect.
my friend. Thanks again, and have a great weekend.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.